Right. So first of all, I like to thank you for joining this webinar, and I welcome you to Red Hat Enterprise Linux webinar here. So it's a dedicated 60 hours training. So we will go with the webinar here, and we will discuss basically exactly what is about the this webinar. All these things we will discuss. Yes, someone raised Sushil. Yes, you can ask me. Do you have any queries? So fine, let's go. Uh, Fine. So first of all, I would like to welcome you to Red Hat Enterprise Linux webinar here. And let me introduce myself. About me, I am A. Balachandra Kumar, Managing Director and Red Hat Certified Trainer. Okay. So basically, hello. Yeah, please mute on your side. Yeah. So I'm a basically my name is A. Balachandra Kumar. I'm a managing director for this ITZ Technologies. I'm running this training and consulting company from last 12 years. And I'm a certified trainer, Red Hat certified trainer. I'm having 15 years experience in system administration, tech consulting, and training. And when it comes to a training, basically, I I just provide a different technologies. I provide a training on different technologies here. So when I just talk about different technologies, let me. So basically, as I told you, right, ITZ technologies there from last 10 years. It is engaged in business, okay, software training and technical consulting services, and involved in providing a quality software training to the students and working professional located all over the globe in different technologies. Just give me 1 minute, please. So basically here, so when it comes to ITs and technologies, it's I'm running it from last 2010 onwards, and engaged in business called software trainings and technical consulting, and involved in providing a quality software training to the students and working professional located all over the globe on different technologies. So when I say different technology, what are these different technologies? Basically, I'm expert in providing the trainings on these all technologies here. You can just see this. Okay, so when it comes to Red Hat Ansible engine, when it comes to Ansible, it's a DevOps tool. I know, I hope many of you people know what is Ansible here. So when it comes to automation, when it comes to configuration management, when it comes to orchestration or provisioning, we try to use Red Hat Ansible. It's a most used DevOps tool in the industry. And apart from this, Red Hat Enterprise Linux, and I provide Red Hat Enterprise Linux training in two ways. One is a job-oriented training. Okay, this job-oriented training is designed by me based on my experience. Okay, and we also have other training like Red Hat RHCSA certification course also I'll provide. Okay, then apart from Ubuntu, Oracle, Linux. Okay, and we have something called Solaris. I also do Unix flavors like Solaris, IBM AIX, VMware. And when it comes to cloud, I also do training and support in AWS. Okay, and Veritas Suite, which is an enterprise level application which consists of VX, VM, and VCS. And I also provide a job support and certification assistance. And I have trained more than 10,000 people all over the globe using online. Okay, this is what exactly. So let me give you, like, this is all about my information here. Now, what is the agenda of this particular webinar here is very simple. The webinar is all about, like, we will be discussing what is Linux, what is open source, why should we learn Linux, where Linux is used, and what makes Linux great, and learning and job path. This is what exactly we're going to do. So when I just talk about what is Linux, because many of you know that what is Linux, because you are working with Windows, or many people who join this webinar, even they already working with Linux also, right? Here and there, right? So very simple here, Linux is nothing but an operating system, right? Linux is nothing but an operating system. Okay, so when I say that Linux is an operating system here, very simple. Linux is an operating system like Windows, like we have a Windows, right? Windows is an operating system. Like in the same way, Linux is also an operating system, an OS, right? So you should know one thing here is when I'm just talking about the Linux operating system here. Okay, so like like many times you will have a lot of questions saying that what is the use of operating system, but everyone know it, but still we will try to question ourselves or we will try to question okay other people, because you know that in order to interact with the hardware we need an operating system. So operating system is going to act as an interface. Okay, it is going to act as an interface between the human, that is nothing but users as well as hardware, right? So this is a reason why we need an operating system. Please mute on your side. Please mute on your side. Please, Pradeep, please mute on your side. Thanks. Thanks very much. So, so this is what basically about the operating system here is. Linux is nothing but an operating system. But like when you try to compare with Windows, so like why only Linux, why not Windows? Because you know that you are using Windows from long time, right? Okay, so when you compare with Windows to Linux, there are so many differences we have. Okay, when it comes to real-time usage. So what is this differences is nothing but Windows is purely used in GUI mode. Even it has a very good command line, but still we use only in graphic mode. We try to use in graphic mode. But whereas when it comes to Linux also has a very good graphic environment. But when it comes to real-time projects, we try to use a Linux totally into a command line. Totally into a command line. You're getting my point. So then you will ask me the question like, if I'm using a command line, then what's the advantage here, right? So resources consumption will be low. Resources consumption will be very minimal, right? And this will improve your operating system performance. This will improve the server per client ratios. This will improve the users ratio on your machine, right? So this is the reason why when it comes to real-time projects, Linux is only used in command line. Linux is used only in a command line. Is this clear? So this is basically how it is going to be, right? So now let me take you into this PPT, PowerPoint presentation here. So the agenda we were discussing about what is Linux here. So very simple, what is Linux? Linux is nothing but a multi-user operating system. See here, we are using something called multi-user. When I say multi-user, take a small example. If I ask you a question saying that, is your Windows 10 is a multi-user? Is your Windows 7, Windows 10, Windows 11 is multi-user? No, it is not multi-user. It is a single user operating system. Why we are calling it a single user is nothing but see, when you are sitting in front of your laptop, when you try to log into your machine, and if I connect remotely to your machine over the network, you'll get disconnected and I'll get connected. This is how it is going to work. It is mean that it's purely a single user operating system. Now you might have a doubt, is Windows is multitasking operating system? Yes, Windows is a multitasking operating system, right? So what is meant by task here? See, as you log into your Windows laptop or desktop, or it might be any machine, see, you will not work with one application. You will try to work with multiple application. You will try to open a browser, you will try to open a player, you will try to browse something on the browser, and you will try to open a notepad or document PPT like this. You will try to open multiple application. It is clear that Linux is a multi-user as well as multitasking operating system. But whereas when it comes to Windows 10, Windows 7, Windows 11 is a multitasking operating system, but it is a single user operating system, right? But you might have a doubt. Then what about server? Windows Server. We have a server operating system, right? Windows Server 2003, 2008, 2012, like this we have, right? So this server side operating systems are purely a multitasking, multi-user operating system, same like Linux, right? So this is basically how it's going to be. Now let us discuss something about what is open source here. See, basically, when I say Linux is open source, so what is open source exactly? What do you think about open source? See, many times when I just talk about open source means many people think that it is free, right? Yes, it is free, but it is a second meaning of open source. But what is the first meaning of open source? Is code is open to everyone. So when I say that code is open to everyone, what does it mean? When I say that code is open to everyone, what does it mean? Code is open to everyone means anyone can download the source code of the Linux and they start developing. Okay, now you might have a doubt, when we don't know how to work with Linux, then what I will do with the code, what I will do, okay, how I will develop. Very simple here. See, small example, I will tell you what is the benefit of open source. Take an example, I'm good at gaming, right? So I have a very good idea, very good analyzation and visualization of one game, right? I want to develop a game. So what I'll do is I'll go to Microsoft and I'll say that, boss, I have a very good idea to develop a game, and I'm really telling you that this game is going to very big profit. So you will say that I need your platform to develop this game. Will Microsoft will give you that his platform? No, he says no. We are not ready to give you a my code. We are not ready to give you the operating system because our code is closed source. Our code is so closed source. When he says that it is closed source, what does it mean? Only his technical team only can update. This is what exactly. Only his technical team, the Microsoft related technical team only can develop, can debug, can fix the errors on the operating system, right? But whereas when it comes to Linux source code is open. When I say it is open, what you will do, you will try to download that source code and try to develop your game on the day based on this open source, right? So this is what exactly happened. Like this, like me, there are many people, millions of people over the globe who want this open source to develop their applications, tools, softwares. Okay, someone want to use this Linux and they want to develop an application for their college. Someone want to use this Linux and they want to develop an application for their schools. Someone want to develop a social media site. Someone want to develop a website. Someone want to develop a virtualization. Someone want to develop cloud applications, right? So what they do is they try to take this open source code and they try to put their research into this open source and they release into the market. This is the benefit of open source. So because of this open source, I'm telling you, Linux has many features. Because I'm telling you, because Linux is open source, every year more than 2 million projects will be running, right? And people are using this Linux open source code to develop different softwares and applications and tools, and they are trying to give it to the industry. Some are commercial, some are free. Like this it is going to happen, right? So this is the advantage of the open source. This is the benefit of open source, right? And as we discuss, the second meaning of open source is nothing but free. The second meaning of open source is nothing but free, remember, right? So this is basically how it's going to work. So open source means the code is open to everyone, right? Whoever they are very much interested in developing a code, they can download this open source operating system and start developing it. Start developing it, right? So this is what exactly it is going to work. I'm telling you, even in future, you're going to see instead of Android OS, your mobiles will be running with Linux OS, right? Even nowadays, you will see that there are many smart TVs which is running with Android OS. In future, you will see that it will be running with Linux. Okay, not in future. Already there is a revolution happen. There are many vendors who want to run their TVs. Okay, the smart TVs with Linux operating system. So you might have a doubt, why not Android? Why they are going for Linux? It is secure, it is safe, right? So this is the reason, right? And there are many things that are being developed based on Linux. You're getting my point. So we will be discussing it detailedly here. Now we will just try to talk. Why should you learn Linux, right? So why should you learn Linux here? Because Linux is a critical technology for IT professionals and freshers to understand. right? So you might have a doubt why it is critical technology for IT professionals, why it is for freshers. Because the people who are working in IT industry, they will be interacting with Linux directly or sometimes indirectly, right? Because most of their applications, most of their tools, most of their databases are running based on the Linux. You're getting my point. Okay, take an example. You are working as a Python. Okay, you want to write some code. Okay, and if that Python is running from Linux, then you should know how to use a Python code inside the Linux. You should know how to use editors called VI, Vim, Nano, G editor. Like, in Windows, we have a notepad, right? Notepad, notepad plus plus. Like this inside the Linux, we have something called, okay, Python, right? I mean, not Python, VI, Vim. This is called file editors, right? Even for freshers also, whoever they want to learn any technologies like cloud, DevOps, anything, databases, storages, or anything they want to learn before they start getting into these technologies, it is basically recommended to learn Linux. Okay, you talk about cloud. When we talk about a cloud, many people who are working in cloud, they start their career from Linux only. They start their learning from the Linux. Why? Because inside the Linux, they learn so many things. They learn something about storage. They learn something about storage virtualization. They learn something about web servers. They know something about DNS. They learn something about DHCP. They learn something about proxies. They learn something about firewalls. They learn something about types of networks, right? So this will be a foundation course for their cloud technologies, right? So Linux is a critical technology for IT professionals and freshers to understand, right? So this is basically how it is going to be. Okay, and Linux is widely spread use. If you are using internet, you are probably already interacting with Linux systems in your day-to-day life. Now you might have a doubt. If I am using internet, how come? Because your web servers are running based on the Linux only, right? You might be using daily Amazon, e-purchasing site. You might be using Flipkart. You might be using some other sites, okay, to buy, to shop some products, some books, right? So basically, when you're interacting such kind of sites, it is mean that you are indirectly interacting with your Linux. Okay, because all that stuff is running based on the Linux. You're getting my point? So this is how exactly it is going to work. Okay, then we will just talk something about perhaps the most obvious way in which you interact with Linux system is through browsing the World Wide Web and e-commerce sites and buying, selling products and social media. This is all happening based on the Linux only. You'll ask me then, everywhere is Linux used? Yes, everywhere it is used. Even you are making a call. Yes, even right now we are talking over the Zoom. This all interaction happens over the Linux only. Maybe there might be some application which will be working on the top of the Linux, but below this application, definitely there will be a Linux, right? You're sending a WhatsApp message, that too. The messaging system is running from the Linux. You might be sending a Gmail, a mail from one, to your from your account to some other account. Even this is happening from the Linux. So this is what exactly. Okay, why? Because why this change has happened is now there is no alternative. I'm telling you, there is only two flavors of operating system that is leading this entire industry. One is Linux, another one is Windows. And I will tell you, Linux is leading almost 70% of entire IT industry has been captured by Linux and 30% has been captured by the Windows. Getting it? So this is the benefit. This is the advantage why we go for Linux. Okay, so now let's see something about it. So Linux manages point of sale systems and a world stock exchanges or stock markets. You know that, okay, point of sale systems is nothing but, like you'll try to visit some shopping mall, there will be machines where you try to generate a bill. That is called point of sale system. And stock markets, previously stock markets used to run on IBM mainframes, right? But you see IBM mainframes also replaced, by the Linux. So you should understand the capabilities, the capacity of the Linux. Okay, so this is all about. Now what we will do is powers the smart TVs, as I told you. Okay, and in-flight entertainment systems. Many of you will be traveling through flights, and at the back of your seat there will be a small you know LCD will be there, and you know and that flight entertainment systems are also built based on Linux, right? So this is advantage here. Then apart from this here, it powers the most of the top 500 supercomputers in the world. So 500 supercomputers are also running based on the Linux only. I'll tell you one scenario here. Like we have gone through a pandemic, COVID, right? And you observe that like within 8 months, within 9 months, the vaccination got into the market, into the public. How it is possible? If you go 15 years back, I mean not 15 years, if you go 100 years back, okay, or 50 years back, 25 years back, you know when a vaccination should come into the market in use, okay, basically it used to take 3 to 4 years. You'll ask me why like that? Because they have to invent a vaccine and they have to test that vaccine in a million ways. You're getting my point, and then only they will try to release it. Okay, then a vaccination which was released into the market, which used to take nearly 3 to 4 years of time, such a vaccine, we got it within 8 months. How it is possible? Because we have used the supercomputers to test that vaccine, okay, in a million ways. In million ways they have tested, and that is the reason in 8 9 months, within 12 months, the vaccination came into existence because of the supercomputers, right? This is what exactly. And powering the cloud revolutions and tools used to build the next generation container based microservices and applications. This is what exactly powering the cloud revolutions, right? And the tools used to build the next generation of container based microservices and applications. This is what exactly we have, right? So this is all benefits of the Linux here, right? And software based storage technologies, maybe you will come to know about it. Big data solutions, this is all built based on Linux. And what makes Linux great? Linux is an open source software, one thing. Linux provides easy access to the powerful and scriptable command line interface, right? It's purely a command line. I'll try to show you that. Okay, and Linux is a modular operating system that allows you to easily replace and remove the components. Okay, this is going to make the Linux as it's a great, right? Now let's do one thing. I'll just try to take you into the other things here. Now we have discussed so many things about the Linux, but I just want to give you some information how the Linux came into an existence. Who brought the Linux? Because whenever you try to talk to the some experts, they say that Linux is Unix-like operating system. So why they are calling Linux as Unix-like operating system, right? Is it really Linux came from the Unix? If Linux came from the Unix, who brought it? Who brought it? Who introduced it? Who designed it? This is what we need to know. So very simple here. To know this, what we need to do is we need to go 20 years back. There is a small history behind this. What is that we will say? First of all, you should understand when the Unix came into an existing. Unix was introduced in 1969, okay, by Ken Thomas and Dennis Richards. Okay, Ken Thomas and Dennis Richards. This is two people. And these two people have developed this Unix operating system in 1969, and it came into use in 1970 onwards. It came into use, right? So 1970 Jan 1, we can say Jan 1, it is in use. And remember, in use, and it is an open source. So basically Unix was also an open source, remember that. So now what happened is many people, they have taken the source codes of Unix and they started developing it. And there are some vendors like we talk about IBM has developed their own flavor of Unix that is called AIX, and HP has developed their own flavor of Unix that is called UX. Okay, and there was a company called Sun Microsystem. Sun Microsystem. Okay, Sun Microsystem, they have developed their own flavor of Unix that is called Solaris. Okay, so like this we used to have, and there are many open source Unix operating system we used to have, right? Getting my point. So you will be having a doubt when there are many flavors of Unix operating system. Some are commercial, some are open source. Then why we are only taking the name of these three vendors only? Right, the reason here is very simple, because they used to provide a proprietary operating systems based on the proprietary hardware, and this proprietary operating systems provided by IBM or HP or Sun Microsystem, right now it is called Oracle, it is being used much in the industry. It is being used much in the industry, right? So that is the reason we are talking about it. For example, I will give you, we have a we have a iPhone, right? You know that iPhone runs with Android, iOS. It runs with what? iOS. And if you go for Samsung or any other phone, it runs with Android OS. You will see much differences between iPhone as well as the Samsung phone. What is the difference? The OS is different here, right? So you will ask me, if OS is having, if it is different, so what makes a difference here? Because the OS is different, it provides you lot of features. Okay, if you go for proprietary, right? See, whatever the features you see in iPhone, will you see the same features in Samsung or other phones? No, not possible. Okay, so here also same thing. When it comes to IBM or HP or Sun Microsystem or Oracle, they used to provide a proprietary hardware. So you will ask me, what is this proprietary hardware? Take an example. IBM used to provide a proprietary hardware called Power. HP used to provide a proprietary hardware called um, Risk. Yes, Risk hardware. And Sun Microsystems used to provide a hardware called Spark. Spark stands for Scalable Processor Architecture. RISC stands for Reduce Instruction Set Computing Architecture. And Power stands for Performance Optimized with Enhanced RISC Technology. It is called, right? So these are the things. Okay, so now when I'm talking about this, I'm just giving you some information about the Unix. Okay, we are not going much into Unix, right? So now you need to understand how the Linux came into an existing. Now you need to go to 1990s. Okay, so why we are going to 1990s? Because till 1990s Unix were ruling the market, ruling the industry. And you want to know that where the Unix was used. Unix was used somewhere in weather forecasting, army, navy, defense, right? Okay, and somewhere satellite research centers. This is the areas where the Linux was much used. I mean, Unix was much used, not Linux. Unix was much used. But in 1990s, what happened is, okay, there was a student with the name called Linus Torvald. Linus Torvald. Okay, so you might be asking me why you're talking about Linus Torvald. Okay, so Linus Torvald is also a graduation student. He was pursuing his graduation and he has to do a project. Okay, and what college management has decided is they have recommended him to do a project on a Minix. Okay, so Minix was an open source Unix operating system. It was an open source Unix OS. It's an open source Unix OS, right? So as I say that it is an open source Unix OS, very simple. Okay, so when it comes to this open source Unix, and many people were doing their projects on this open source Unix, then why we are talking only about Linus Torvald? There is one advantage here. One, uh, you know, because Linus Torvald was, very much interested in open source. He was very much interested in open source, right? he was very much interested in open source, and that's the reason, right? So Linus Torvald, what he did is, when he was doing his project, what he was doing is he was just comparing this Minix with other flavors of Unix and Linux, I mean other flavors of Unix. Then he can't go to these companies and he can't go to these people and he can't ask like why there is a technology gap, why these features are different. So what he did is, as he completed his project, he decided to develop an Minix. I mean, he want to develop a new operating system, but he don't know how to write it from the scratch. What he did is very simple. He have taken the source of Minix, and what he did is, whatever the ideas he was having, he kept into the Minix. Right? He took 3 to 6 months time. He developed a lot. Then later, he don't want that all his development should go with the same name. What he did is, he was just looking for some name. He have decided to put some different names, but finally he decided to put his name called Linus. Okay, later on it got renamed as Linux. There are many reasons, because like Unix end with X, right? Like this only, instead of Linus, he just named it as Linux, right? There are many stories on internet. X also represents x86 hardware. X represents Unix, like this it is there. Okay, so okay, fine, he developed and he gave a new name to the operating system with the name called Linux, and he kept a one condition. What is that condition? He have invited all the developers all over the globe, and saying that he have developed an operating system with the name called Linux, and it is open source. You can also download and you can also develop it, but on one condition: you should not change the name called Linux. You can add any name in front of the Linux or back, right? So based on this condition, what happened is, people started downloading this Linux operating system, and they started developing it. They started giving name. That is the reason you will find many number of Linux flavors on the internet. Like you can see, not only Red Hat Linux, Ubuntu, CentOS, Fedora, so many things we have, right? If you just go with an alphabetical order, there will be more than 30-40,000 flavors of Linux we are having. But you will ask me, when we have 40,000 flavors of Linux, then why people are back of only 10 to 15 flavors here? Okay, why people are back of only 10 to 15 flavors? Okay, so there is a reason here. What is the reason here? 10 to 15 flavor means there is one reason here. What is that reason? I will tell you. When I say, see, you will see, different companies mobile in the market, but we standardly buy, the companies which has a very good review, very good standards. Yes or no? At the same time, when it comes to operating system also, as we have a many flavors of Linux operating system, but still we try to use only 10 to 15 flavors. The reason here is based on the industrial standards they have developed, right? So the reviews are good, the feedbacks are good, errors are less, okay, vulnerabilities are less. It supports the hardwares. It has so many flexibilities. Based on all these conditions, people are using this 10 to 15 flavors. In these 10 to 15 flavors, the most used operating system is Red Hat Linux or Red Hat Enterprise Linux, we can say. You're getting my point. Red Hat Enterprise Linux is most used operating system in this industry. The reason why it is being used much means there are many reasons we have. Why? Because Red Hat Linux operating system has been built as per the industrial standard. The operating system is certified by the IT industry, IT companies, IT experts, right? And the vendors, it has been certified by the hardware vendors and software vendors. And Red Hat also has a pattern of certifying the people who are learning Linux. So this creates a huge demand inside the market. You're getting my point. So this makes, Red Hat Enterprise Linux to use more in the industry. Now you will ask me, I have also seen Ubuntu also, right? Okay, I have seen SUSE also. I have used Fedora also. We have used CentOS also. We have used something called Kali Linux, Mint Linux. Yes, even this is also there in the market, but they are not much as Red Hat Enterprise Linux. The reason is they are being not certified by the industry as much as Red Hat has been certified. Okay, so these are all the reasons why Red Hat Enterprise Linux is most used operating system in the industry. And this is the way, like how the Linux operating system came into an existence. You're getting my point? And Linux operating system can be used and can be installed, can be used and can be run on any platform, any hardware. It might be a Intel hardware, it might be a AMD hardware, it might be a virtual machine, it might be a cloud, it might be a container, anywhere. You can use it anywhere, right? So this is how exactly the Linux came into an existence. Is this clear or any doubts? So if you have any doubts, please you can unmute and you can ask me. Okay, now I'll just try to give you some information about like our course. Like when I'm just talking about Red Hat Enterprise Linux, okay, 60 hours, dedicated this 60 hours training. Okay, when I talk about basically the 60 hours is divided into three modules here. The first one is Linux basics here. The second one is Linux system administration. And the third one is Linux network administration, right? So when I just talk about the basics here, the basics is all about, like I'll just try to put a content in front of you. You'll try to understand. So this is the basics content here. So what we will do is we will start from the scratch. I'm telling you, people who don't know what is Linux, we will start from the scratch. Okay, so when it comes to Linux basics, we will talk about introduction to Linux. When we talk about introduction to Linux, we will discuss what is Linux, how the Linux came into an existing features of Linux, and what is shell, what is kernel. Okay, we will talk about introduction to file system here, right? We will talk something about introduction to file system, right? So, and we will also talk about introduction to directory hierarchy and taking the help from the operating system. Basically, whenever you talk about a help, we try to get into a Google, you know that. But nowadays, like many companies, they are blocking the Google. They don't allow you to use a Google in within the work environment. So if in case you're not allowed to access the Google, what we need to do, we should know how to take a help from your operating system. Okay, we have certain commands to take the help, and we will see like how do we work with, how do we create a file, directory, copy, move, cd command, and working with ls commands and general commands to list the system information. And we will be discussing something of a FAP. FAP stands for file access permission, and we have something called VI Vim. Vim is nothing but it's a file editor. And we have something called soft link and hard links, wildcard characters, basic filters. And we have something called find and grep commands and basic shell scripting also we will be discussing. Basic shell scripting is just a touch to the scripting, that's it. Okay, I'll just try to give you an information because we're not going to get into dedicated scripting. I'm going to give you an information like how do we recognize a script, how do we execute a script, how the code is written. This is just we are going to see there. Okay, so this is all about the basics which we are going to do for 10 hours, right? So this is what exactly. Then once we complete the basics, then we will be trying to get into system admin. So when it comes to system administration, first we will be discussing about introduction to Red Hat Enterprise Linux. So when I talk about Red Hat Enterprise Linux, basically what is Red Hat Enterprise Linux, from where it has been introduced, I mean, who introduced it, how many versions and releases of Red Hat Enterprise Linux is going to is available, and what is the life cycle management of Red Hat Enterprise Linux. And we will also discuss about technical limitations of Red Hat Enterprise Linux. And we will also discuss the Red Hat Enterprise Linux is installed and run on enterprise level hardware that is being provided by Dell, HP, IBM, and Oracle. We will try to discuss how this hardware look. Okay, many people who are working in real-time environment, they already know how their servers look, how the servers are operated. But if some people who are really freshers, who are totally new to this hardware, then definitely it is very, very important that you should know something about this hardware. right? Then we will talk something about Red Hat Enterprise Linux installation. Here we will try to see how do we install operating system using DVD and ISO image, and we will also see understanding on like what is Anaconda. Anaconda is nothing but an installation program, and we will also see like how do we install operating system using HTTP, NFS, and HTTP. But we will try to use only one method here, not all, because you are totally new to this, right? Initially, if I go for all these network services, you will get confused, right? And then we will go with device management, device naming convention, where we will be discussing about all the device terminologies and identifying the devices, detecting the devices online, and commands to list the device information. Then after this, we will talk about a disk partitioning and file systems. Here we will be talking about how do we create a partition, what is the disk label type schemas we have, all these things, and we will talk about XFS file systems also. Then we have something called user management. User management is all about how do we create a users and groups, and how the password management is going to work. All these things we will discuss. And we also have advanced level securities like SU, sudo, sticky bit, setuid, setgid, ACLs. We will also discuss this, right? Then we will be discussing something about boot process here. Like this is very important concept. It is for troubleshooting, right? Whenever you are doing some maintenances, you will try to reboot or shut down the machine. If a machine doesn't boot up normally, then we should go for a troubleshooting. If you want to go for a troubleshooting, you should know the details about the booting process. We will also see how to break the root password, how to get into rescue and emergency mode to recover, right? And we will also discuss about system d. Okay, how the system d is going to work using system d, how do we manage the services, we will see here. Then we have something called software management here. The software management is all about, you know, we will see how do we install and configure the yum repository here, right? We will discuss all about, see, in Windows you will try to install some software, right? MS Office, Acrobat Reader, like this. Inside the Linux, if you want to install any packages, you should install using yum. And if you want to install any packages using yum, you should understand yum repository, right? And then we have something called analyzing and storing logs. We will be discussing like how do we work on the logs, right? Many times, you know, that if you want to troubleshoot anything, you should know how to read a log. Logs are very important here. And we will be discussing security feature called SC Linux and firewall D. These are important thing. Then okay, then apart from this here, this is all about the, you know, system admin. Not, it is not system admin. We have so many other concepts also. I'll just try to continue. We will be discussing backups and automations, also comes under system administration, and the storages, that is called LVM, also comes under system admin, right? Okay, this is all comes under system administrations here. Then we talk about network admin. When we talk about network admin, we will just go with introduction to network, where we will be discussing about the basics of network, IP classes, IPv version 4, IP version 6, how do we configure you know, NIC card with IP address, how the SSH is going to work, IPv version 6 networking, and we will see how do we configure NIC teaming and bridge. Then we will go with DNS, NFS, Samba, NTP, web server, proxy. This all comes under network servicing, right? So this is all about the course content that we are going to go with. Okay, with this dedicated 60 hours training. So the basics will be 10 hours, system admin will be around 25 hours to 30 hours, and network admin will be another 20 hours. So this is what exactly. And we will be doing every day 1.5 hours. But basically, when you get into system administration, we will be doing 2 hours also, based on the requirements. And what is the benefit if you register and go continue this training? You will be getting recordings. Every day recordings will be shared using a Google Drive. And second thing is, I'll try to provide you a soft copy of documentation. I'll try to provide you a sample resumes, FAQs related to the Linux. Okay, so this is all about an interview questions. FAQs is nothing but interview questions. So this is all about how it is going to work. And people who are going with this dedicated training, and after this training, if you are planning to take Ansible training from me, okay, and you are going to get a 20% discount on the Ansible. This is what exactly the features that you are going to get when you just go with this course. So any doubts here, let me know. Any queries, any doubts, please, you can unmute yourself and you can start asking. Yeah, Pradeep, Shushil, uh, Jayashree, Anil, there's so many people are there. You can please, if you have any doubts, I don't know if you can give me some answers. You're able to follow, you're able to understand the way the flow is going on. Yes. And let me give you the information here. Basically, this course total fees is 15K. Okay, but right now, like there is slight negotiations are there. I don't say like that. Hello. Please, any doubts, any questions? If you are muted, you can unmute and you can ask me. If you're not able to unmute, you can ask through the chat also. Yes. So yes, we are going to do Monday to Friday. We are going to do these sessions Monday to Friday, and every day we will try up to basics. When as we get into our system administration, we will be doing 1.5 hours. Then later we will be doing 2 hours. And someone is asking me that can we pay in two-part payments? Yes, you can pay in two-part payments. Okay, as we start the training after the second day, you can pay 50%, and as we complete 50% of training, you can pay another 50%. So this is what exactly. So I hope you're not having any doubts. You're not asking. I mean, someone has typed some questions, but I think most of the questions has been resolved. I think. But still, apart from this, if you have any other questions related to, then you can ask me. And when it comes to me, I'm providing a different courses, not only Linux, I provide Red Hat Ansible, Engine as well as Java. Okay, and apart from this, I also provide the other enterprise level tools like Veritas Volume Manager, Veritas Cluster. Okay, this is what. Yeah, Sushil, you're asking something?
Sure.
So fine then. Then if you don't have any questions, yeah, please.
सर हेलो
Yeah, please ask me.
सर इसका वीडियो देख सकते थे मैं ट्रेन में इसे ट्रेवल कर रहा था उसका पूरा ऑडियो मेरे पास सुनाई नहीं दिया मेरे को
Okay, fine, no problem. We will share you the video.
Yeah,
We will
yeah,
try to
just
share the video. That's not a problem. We will try to upload this
this,
video on the YouTube and we will try to share it. Okay.
okay, okay,
And
लिंक व्हाट्सएप में लिंक भेज देने
yeah,
का
please. Definitely we will try to put it. And
इसके
from tomorrow, we are planning to start the training from tomorrow, same time, 8 o'clock, 8 to 9:30 will be our training session. Okay. And the same link we are going to use it. The same link we are going to
सर
use. Yes.
9 to 10 नहीं होता है
Yes. Yeah, आपका voice break हो रहा है. I'll talk to you. Okay. I'll call and I'll talk to you. Okay. So we are going to start tomorrow. Definitely if you, right? So fine.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.